Gandalf and the stoutest of the garrison stood against Mordor's fury. Today we take a closer look at Jackson's version of the Siege of Minas Tirith and analyze it as real history. We will explore how a medieval siege truly works, the key phases of an assault, unit roles, deployment, active defense, and siege weaponry. And we will see how strategy and battlefield tactics shape the outcome of a siege. Let's start with the bombardment scene. And right away there's a problem. Where are the mantlets and protective screens? Jackson stays faithful to Tolkien on one point. Mordor's catapults are supposed to be out of range of the defenders. But what we actually see on screen are torsion-based engines, similar to onagers, with a forward counterweight to amplify the shot. Historically, such machines did exist, but their range is inferior to that of a longbow, especially when fired from elevated walls. Here we are clearly within archer range. Now the Gondorian response. Trebuchets were not used defensively in medieval warfare. They are offensive weapons, fixed, slow, and designed to strike fixed targets. The largest models could fire less than twice per hour and require dozens of men to reload, something unrealistic for a besieged defender who is usually outnumbered. What did exist instead were smaller, more mobile machines that could be deployed on walls or towers. Mangonel, giant crossbows, and similar artillery. Then come the Nazgul. There is no medieval historical equivalent, of course, but if such a force had existed, their use here makes sense. Striking from above, targeting siege engines, hitting behind the defenders' lines, and forcing them to take cover. However, they would remain highly vulnerable to archers. The next scene brings us into another essential phase of medieval siege warfare, the approach. Here, the orcs attempt to engage the defenders in close combat, which is the most dangerous moment for the attacker. We see trolls being targeted by Gondorian archers. Fighting on the walls favors the defenders, who hold a superior position. And at the gate, the orcs are slaughtered. To succeed, attackers must multiply angles of attack, and this is well represented. Catapult bombardment, wall assaults, and a battering ram at the gate. That is exactly what should be done. However, the ram lacks protection. Historically, rams were covered with roofs and wet animal skins to prevent fire. We do see supporting volleys from orc archers, which is historically accurate, but we are missing mantlets and mobile palisades. Even when GROND is brought forward, we still see archery support, but no protection. The large beasts and trolls remain highly vulnerable to missiles and fire. And speaking of fire, tell me in the comments if you noticed that man from Rune who seems to be directing the orcs during the night bombardment. Now a scene I really like. The orcs attack the gate with GROND while simultaneously bombarding the city with incendiary projectiles. Normally, in a multi-level city like Minas Tirith, you do not rush to set fire to upper levels before destroying as many enemies as possible. Fire and smoke could cover defenders' withdrawal to the second level. But here, it works, because the bombardment happens precisely when the gate is about to fall. It becomes part of a strategy aimed at disrupting the defender's deployment at the gate. This is even more important because the assaults on the walls with siege towers have failed and been repelled. Ideally, the attackers would still maintain three axes of attack: walls, gate, and artillery. But here, they do not. So the defenders are able to withdraw troops from the walls and mass them behind the gate, which explains the incendiary bombardment. On the defensive side, Gandalf deploys the troops in two lines: infantry in front, archers behind. This is exactly what should be done. A crescent formation could also work. The scene is simplified: no barricades, no portcullis, no burning carts, no caltrops. But overall, the logic is correct. We also see exchanges of arrows, showing that the towers in the upper gate are still held by Gondor. The attacker's tactic is coherent as well. The objective is to force a breakthrough as quickly as possible, and for that, they send in their shock troops first. We see trolls, wargs, runes heavy infantry, and uruks leading the assault. The fighting is brutal. The defense is stubborn, and Gondor's heavy infantry manages to hold the line at first. Eventually, the Mordor forces achieve a breakthrough, and Gandalf orders a withdrawal, but it remains controlled. The wounded are evacuated, entire companies fall back to the second level, while street fighting continues. Sauron's forces spread rapidly through the city, while being targeted by the archers who still hold the gate. But for those men, there will be no retreat. Urban combat becomes then violent, chaotic, and often ends in close, almost bare-handed fighting. Finally, the Gondorians abandon the first level and entrench themselves on the second. And meanwhile, the Rohirrim are approaching. In Tolkien's version, however, the city never breaks. When the Rohirrim arrive, Mordor's forces are not inside the walls. The defenders even manage a sortie, charging out from the gates. Two visions, two sieges. Tell me which version you prefer, and I'll see you very soon.